I'm never going to do anything to hurt our farmers.
The One Big Beautiful Bill will also be an incredible victory for American farmers, another group that we did great with, especially family farmers.
Never thought I was going to lose this much money, this fast.
Jim is a Republican who voted for Donald Trump 3 times.
How do you feel about your vote for Donald Trump now?
Well, I feel like perhaps I should have considered some other options.
I did a 90-day pause for the people that didn't retaliate, because I told them if you retaliate, we're going to double it. And that's what I did with China, because they did retaliate.
We are very concerned about the current outlook. As a soybean farmer, we are dependent on trade. Right at 50% of the soybeans produced in the United States are exported. China takes more of our soybeans than all other foreign customers combined. So they're a major part of our market, and this trade war is very concerning to us right now.
Tell us.
Now, I've never been as worried as I am now about whether or not my kids and grandkids will be able to carry on.
He said, I love you, Mr. Trump. I need to see the fruit of your love.
Hello friends, welcome back to another Think Out Loud breakdown. If you're new here, pull up a chair and grab your coffee. This is the spot where we laugh, we learn, and we sometimes wonder out loud how much FAFO a country can take before it runs out of duct tape. And to my loyal crew, you already know, it feels good to be back with the family. Now, if you've been here a while, you remember we already did a big breakdown on MAGA farmers, but today we're zooming in on soybeans, America's #1 cash crop, the golden child of the Midwest, and now the most awkward bean at the barbecue. And listen, around here we're not shy about dissecting FAFO. Sector by sector, subsector by subsector. Heck, if I have to go crop by crop, bean by bean, I will. Because the irony in this story, it's richer than the topsoil in Iowa. Here's the setup. For years, China was America's biggest soybean customer, buying more than half our exports. That's not just a customer. That's like your best friend who always picks up the check. But then Trump decides to play trade war chicken with Beijing, and poof, that golden ticket is gone. China slides over to Brazil and never looks back. MAGA farmers, meanwhile, are cheering short-term pain, long-term gain, while standing next to silos full of beans that no one wants. And now, there's even talk of another bailout package. Yep, lining up for another round of taxpayer soy sauce to cover the bitter taste. And the same folks who preach no handouts are out here polishing their forks for a second serving. Oh, and before we get too deep, I saw your comments asking for an FAFO edition on truckers. Don't worry, it's on the way. I may not respond to every single comment, but I read them all, I appreciate you all, and honestly, you're the reason this community feels like home. So stick with me, because by the end of this video, you'll see how one trade war didn't just pile beans in silos. It piled up lessons that MAGA farmers still refuse to learn.
Right now, we're in a very dire situation. September's upon us, harvest is starting in the deep south, and we have 0 bushels of soybeans on the books to be sold to China for this current crop that's about to come out of the field. Historically, over the last 5 years, about 1/3 of soybean sales to China would be booked. China amounts to 25% of our total U.S. soybean crop. So that would be 8 or 9% of the whole U.S. crop would normally be on the books with China right now, and we have 0. That is alarming. The farm economy as a whole is struggling. Inflation has caused our cost of production to rise drastically on every front. Commodity prices, in particular soybeans, are down about 50% from where they were 3 years ago. And our numbers are deeply in the red. And we send this letter to President Trump because we've been talking for months about needing to have sales in place, a deal in place, a phase 2 type agreement that has purchase commitments along with a level playing field on trade with no tariffs. And we haven't had anything happen, unfortunately. And our appeal to President Trump and his administration is make soybeans a priority in any trade negotiations that are taking place. Soybeans are the #1 agriculture export to China. And in the last trade war, it was 71% of the losses that we had as American farmers. And they're critical.
Yeah, so if we look at, and we're going to divide. So
I'll stay with grain and oilseeds because that's what I do day to day, but I just have to say one thing about livestock. For livestock folks, we're in good world for them right now. So I'd love to be able to have as good a world that they're having in GNO, but we just don't. And so there's just so many things, and it's really a supply story this year. When you think about across the globe, we haven't had a year where every country's almost in all 8 cylinders where we're getting full production. And that's where we are right now. It's also, too, a bit of a dichotomy in the U.S. is that we're building corn stocks, but the world is not. It's just the opposite in soybeans, where the world's building soy stocks and we're not.
In news that surprises absolutely no one, we are not seeing any orders from China for U.S. soybeans, and we are normally already starting to see those because harvesting starts in September. And it is being reported that the Chinese government is pressuring Chinese importers to not purchase soybeans from the United States. And if that doesn't happen, then the price of soybeans is going to continue to fall. And right now, it is below the break-even point, which means that every farmer in the Midwest, in the Dakotas, and all over the country that produces soybeans for export and sale is going to lose money this year. That's not good for the farmers. It's not good for the economy. And we told you.
All right, let's take a step back and talk about soybeans for a second. Before the trade war, this little bean wasn't just another crop. It was the backbone of American farming. Year after year, soybeans brought in billions, and China was the biggest buyer on the block, scooping up more than half of everything we grew. That kind of relationship is powerful. When you've got one customer buying that much of your product, it's like having the world's most loyal regular at your diner. They show up every day, they keep the lights on, and you start to think they'll never leave. But then came the tariffs, and here's the part that always gets me. Trump really thought he could bully China into playing nice, as if Beijing was just going to roll over because he said so. That's not how this works. China doesn't do bullying. They don't rattle easily. Trying to strong-arm them was like yelling at your Wi-Fi router. You can scream all you want, but you're still not getting a connection.
Look,
How soon?
we were losing hundreds of billions of dollars with China. Now we're essentially not doing business with China. Therefore, we're saving hundreds of billions of dollars. Very simple.
The president, when America is punched, he punches back harder. That's why there will be 104% tariffs going into effect on China tonight at midnight.
If you slap me in the face, I slap you back. China will never allow any country, including the United States, to throw the rule of free trade out of the window and to be presumptuous enough to say, this is the way I do. I hold a gun at your hand, cry uncle, and kneel in front of me. No, China will never do that. Whether other countries will decide to do that, that's their choice. But China will never do that. China's view is very clear. We will never tolerate anyone mistreating China like that, intimidating China, issuing ultimatum to China. If you slap me in the face, I slap you back. That is the tit for tat, and this is exactly what's happening. Now, Chinese government also declared by imposing 125% tariff against total U.S. export to China, the U.S. products have no marketability in the Chinese market, meaning they are ready to see an end to China-U.S. trade to the China export to the United States and vice versa. That is the ultimatum China is issuing to the United States. Don't mess with me. Otherwise, I close the market for you. You will be locked out of China. It's not China losing the U.S. market. The United States runs the risk of being completely locked out of the China market.
China didn't throw a tantrum. They didn't stomp their feet. They just turned and found a new supplier. Brazil and Argentina were more than happy to step in. And just like that, America's crown jewel crop lost its shine. And that's the part that stings. Because the move Trump made was never about what was best for farmers, or even for Americans. For him, it felt like a game, a way to flex his ego. to prove he could bully anyone just because he felt like it. But here's the thing. Global trade isn't a board game, and China isn't in the mood to play. Psychologically, it's almost like Trump saw the world as one big rally stage, where shouting the loudest means you win. But China doesn't clap for noise. They measure, they calculate, and then they act. And their move was simple. Walk away, take their business to Brazil, and let America deal with the silence. Soybeans weren't just beans. They were decades of trust, a bridge between two economies. But all it took was one ego-driven trade war to burn that bridge. And the hardest part? The very farmers cheering the loudest were standing on it when it collapsed.
Doug Fuller's family has been farming in northern Polk County for generations.
Now I get to call all the shots.
He's already nervous about the cash crop he's about to start planting. Soybeans are the target of China's retaliatory tariff, 10% on certain imports from the United States, in response to President Trump's 10% blanket tariff on Chinese goods. Fuller is fearful it spells bad news for the 2025 harvest.
You know, they aren't good for the other countries, they aren't good for me, and who could blame them putting reciprocal tariffs on us? You know, it's just a match, you know, and nobody's going to win.
China is one of the largest overseas markets for American soybeans. According to the USDA, the United States exported nearly $13 billion in soybeans to China last year alone. Fuller has already faced 2 years of bean prices dropping and says it looks as if the trend may continue.
Last year we took a step back, and now we're taking another step back. So I'm, you know, many of us will, we'll get through it, and it's going to be tough on others.
Now, I've never been as worried as I am now about whether or not my kids and grandkids will be able to carry on.
You said, I love you. Mr. Trump, I need to see the fruit of your love.
5 of my customers have committed. That's how serious that this is.
And what it costs for us to farm is astronomical now.
I farm with paid-for equipment. All my tractors are 50 years old, and I can't hardly make this deal work. I think the tariffs are the ice cream on the cake of a perfect storm.
After a horrible year last year where most farmers in Arkansas Delta lost money, this year's going to be worse.
We made the decision to go out this year in the spring. So my son will not be the seventh generation on our farm.
We're going to lose 25 or 30% of the farmers in this country if they don't do something. It has to be done, and it's not just here. It's everywhere.
This is the first time in my life farming that I still have crop in my bins that I can't sell.
So once China walked away, the impact back home was immediate. Prices tanked, exports dried up, and farmers were left staring at silos stacked to the brim with soybeans nobody wanted. Now here's the thing about soybeans. They don't wait. You can't just let them sit around until politics sorts itself out. They spoil, they lose value. And when that happens, it's not just crops rotting in a silo. It's money, it's labor, it's entire seasons of work disappearing. And the irony? MAGA farmers had been cheering about short-term pain for long-term gain. But this wasn't short-term. This was a slow bleed. Week after week, month after month, beans piled higher. Profits fell lower, and that long-term gain started looking more like wishful thinking. It's almost poetic in a sad way. Farmers who had weathered droughts, floods, pests, all the natural challenges you can think of, couldn't survive the one storm they voted for themselves, a political storm. They trusted the promise of a leader who said, "Don't worry, I've got your back." But what they actually got was silos full of beans, bank accounts running dry, and the sinking realization that maybe the pain wasn't leading to any gain at all.
Trump's curse on American farmers is a blessing for Brazil's. Trump killed U.S. soybean farmers who have lost their biggest customer, China. And not only that, they don't know what to plant for next season. A double hit to the bottom line. But one nation's curse is another's good fortune. Brazilian farmers are celebrating a surge in demand from China. Brazil loves Trump because Trump's working for them, or so it seems. Soy farmer Wesley Rosas said it well, quote, "The United States is provoking this fight, but it is Brazil that is going to end up benefiting," unquote. China, the world's largest soybean importer, has shifted its purchases from America to Brazil, which now accounts for over 70% of Chinese soybean imports. Meanwhile, U.S. soybean exports to China have, of course, plummeted, with some farmers questioning the viability of their operations. Again, Trump and the Republican administration have cratered the American economy and crushed American farmers specifically. They benefit other countries. So if you're an American, it's sad news and hard times to come. But if you're Brazilian and a host of other nations, it's the roaring 20s of the 21st century.
Well, the United States has just lost another ally to China, and this time it's one of the most powerful nations in the Western Hemisphere. In just a few short years, Brazil has gone from being one of America's closest partners to becoming China's #1 supplier of food, raw materials, and the #1 destination for Chinese energy investment. China now buys 70% of Brazil's soybeans, is financing new mega projects across the country, and is even helping Brazil issue debt in Chinese yuan instead of US dollars. You see, at the center of this shift are Donald Trump's tariffs, policies that were supposed to make America stronger, but instead have pushed Brazil straight into Beijing's arms. Trump has slapped the country with some of the highest tariffs in the world, leaving the Brazilian government little choice but to lean on the BRICS alliance. We've already seen Trump destroy America's relationship with India earlier this year, and now he's repeating the exact same mistake with Brazil. But this time, the fallout could be even bigger. Because what's happening in Brazil isn't just about soybeans or coffee. It's about which country will become the dominant power in South America for the foreseeable future. So in today's video, we're going to break down everything you need to know about China and Brazil's new partnership and how Beijing will shape the future of Latin America and the global South. Let's jump into it. Now, to understand how big Brazil's shift away from the US is, we need to remember that Brazil has historically been one of Washington's most important partners in the Western Hemisphere. During the Cold War, Brazil was seen as a counterweight to several leftist governments throughout Latin America. For decades, Brazil and the US cooperated in trade, security, and diplomacy. The US is Brazil's second largest export market after China, buying everything from beef to orange juice to coffee. American companies invested heavily in Brazil's industries, from car factories in Sao Paulo to tech services in Rio de Janeiro. Brazil was also a regular partner in G20 summits, working closely with Washington on global finance. But in recent years, the US-Brazil relationship has been deteriorating, and Donald Trump has poured gasoline on the fire. His new round of tariffs hit almost every major Brazilian export, most notably coffee, beef, and orange juice. But he didn't stop there. Trump even extended tariffs to both steel and aluminum. Now, Trump wants you to believe that these tariffs are about reducing a trade deficit, but many analysts see something else at play: politics. You see, Brazil's former president, Jair Bolsonaro, was one of Trump's closest allies, but today he's on trial for plotting a government coup in 2022. Trump has publicly declared the case a witch hunt and pressured Brazil's courts to back off, and when they refused, Trump retaliated with additional tariffs, a direct interference in the internal affairs of a sovereign nation. This kind of behavior from a US president is outrageous. It sends a clear message to Brazil: the United States is no longer a reliable trading partner. And right as Washington slams the door shut, Beijing is standing there, holding it wide open. Let's start with soybeans, Brazil's most important export. For years, American farmers dominated soybean sales to China. But in 2018, when Trump launched his first trade war, Beijing decided it no longer wanted to buy US soybeans, and instead pivoted directly to Brazil instead. The result was US soybean exports to China were crushed, declining more than $9.1 billion, or 75% year on year, from rising trade tensions. Fast forward to today, and Brazil now supplies 70% of all soybeans to China, worth over $50 billion.
While American farmers were watching their soybeans pile up like leftovers nobody wanted, Brazil was having the time of its life. The second China walked away from US soybeans, Brazil stepped right in and said, "Oh, you're hungry? Don't worry, we've got plenty." And China didn't just buy a little. They shifted billions of dollars in orders south, and overnight, Brazil became the world's top soybean exporter. And they didn't stop there. Brazil used the moment to expand. New farms, new ports, new deals. They turned our trade war into their launch pad. Even after the tariffs cooled down, China didn't fully come back. Why would they? Brazil was delivering cheaper, faster, and without all the political drama. And that's where the irony stings. MAGA farmers thought China would come crawling back after the breakup. But instead, China found Brazil, got a glow up, and now they're posting vacation photos while America is just refreshing the feed, wondering what went wrong. That's the cost of short-sighted politics. You don't just lose money, you lose trust. And once another country steps up and proves they can do the job better, good luck getting your spot back. And here's where it gets even more ironic. Because while Brazil was cashing in, MAGA farmers weren't just losing sales, they were lining up for help. The same people who swore off government handouts suddenly needed one of the biggest bailout packages in US history just to stay afloat.
Today in Trump's America, small-town farms in Arkansas are begging for welfare. They can't sell their soybeans to China. Who knew that so many farmers were making $10,000 an acre from China? Who knew? But instead of pulling up their bootstraps, they're going for welfare. They're going for subsidies. They're going for American handouts. Just mere months after saying, we don't support welfare programs, cut Medicare, cut Medicaid, cut everything to these LGBTQIARSTUV people. Pull up your bootstraps, Arkansas. Sell something Americans want to buy. Talk to your man Donnie Darko about the Department of War, because hell, they might be coming to your town soon. He might be bringing the National Guard to Arkansas and you won't have any farmland left anyway. Look, folks, Donnie Darko is destroying America, and if you can't see it, it's a part of the Heritage Foundation, Project 2025. Go look it up. It's a blueprint. Donnie Darko is following it to a T.
Quick question for the farmers in Arkansas who are begging for government handouts. Weren't you the crowd that wanted to take away benefits from hungry school kids? Weren't you guys cheering on the end of USAID? Were you guys happy about WIC going away? Because you didn't think that people should be receiving government handouts. You were all like, pull yourselves up by your bootstraps. But now you feel entitled to government handouts? So socialism for me and not for thee? Do you even know how hypocritical that sounds? There's a saying my grandmother taught me, and it definitely applies to farmers in Arkansas. You reap what you sow, and what you sowed was hate. And now you are losing everything. I'm not happy about that. My step-grandparents were farmers. I grew up visiting a dairy farm every week. I know farmers work hard, but I also know farmers tend to be very stuck in old-fashioned thinking. And it's time for you to wake up. That's what we mean when we say woke. Wake up and see how your hate is actually negatively impacting not just the lives of other innocent people, but you. Do I think the government is going to actually come through and give farmers a handout? Probably. But should you take it when you've already denied those kinds of help to innocent school kids, starving kids overseas? I don't think so.
Can we just talk for a minute about the Arkansas soybean farmers? Arkansas voted 2/3 for Trump. Trump had promised to implement tariffs. Trump then implemented those tariffs. China has retaliated, and because our soybeans, the tariff war made our soybeans too expensive, they decided to buy their soybeans from Brazil, signed 20-year contracts with Brazil, and now for a generation, the Arkansas soybean farmers are screwed because they lost their biggest soybean customer. And they are demanding compensation. Demanding. I mean, I almost admire it. I almost admire the audacity. But they said they don't really like taking government handouts, but, you know, they really don't have a choice. And they are demanding that we compensate them.
It's insane, right? The same farmers who spent years saying they didn't want government handouts are now the ones lining up demanding compensation. After cheering for the very policies that wrecked their markets, they suddenly needed billions in bailout money just to stay afloat. It's crazy, isn't it? Folks who once preached self-reliance, who said welfare was for the weak, now waiting for a government check with their name on it. That's not rugged individualism. That's irony with a capital I. And here's where it gets tough. Because yes, farming is hard work. And yes, the situation has hurt real families. But when you look at how many of these farmers proudly voted for the policies that caused this disaster, it's hard to feel sympathy. They didn't just watch it happen, they voted for it. They cheered for it. And now they're living it. And in the end, some of them finally admitted they had nowhere else to turn. Not to Trump, not to the market, not even to another bailout. Just prayer. There's a TikTok going around of farmers in a hall praying, asking for help. Because after all the cheering, all the tough talk, they realized the only thing left was to call on God. And maybe that's the real FAFO lesson here. You can play politics with your livelihood. You can gamble with global markets. But when it all collapses, the slogans won't save you. Let me just roll that TikTok clip real quick.
Until the federal government steps in to save them, farmers have no one to turn to but God.
Farmers, in my opinion, dear Lord, and it's only my opinion, are closer to thee than anyone else on this earth because we deal with your earth every day. Dear Lord, we're hurting, dear Lord. We can't help what's happened to us.
And that's the video. We have nothing against prayer here, but it's important to know how the decisions you make can end up affecting you, especially when those decisions were made targeting other people. It doesn't hurt until it knocks on your own door. And maybe, just maybe, God gave you the chance to make the right decision the first time. But you didn't take it. I'm just saying. But hey, what do I know, right? Friends, thank you for sticking with me through another breakdown. If you're new here, welcome to the family. Around here, we laugh, we learn, and we try to make sense of the madness together. And to my returning crew, you already know how much I appreciate you. If this video gave you something to think about, or even just something to shake your head at, don't forget to hit like, drop a comment, and share it with someone who loves a good FAFO story. I may not respond to every comment, but I read them all, and I'm grateful for every single one. I'm Glenn, this is Think Out Loud, and now I'm off to pour myself a third cup of coffee just to decompress after all this soybean drama. Catch you in the next one.